Welcome, everyone, to Dead Talk Live. And today we have a very special guest, Will Beinbrink, who's currently the star of The Exorcism of God, currently on video on demand. Will, thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, my friend. It is also going to be in 66 theaters nationwide.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You probably didn't know this, but we had your director, Alejandro, as our guest about a week or so ago. A very fascinating person to talk to. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's talk about your character, okay? Father Peter. Now, the movie, of course, The Exorcism of God, begins with a very elaborate exorcism scene
Mhm.
with you right in the center of the action. What was
Yes.
your reaction when you read the script and you saw how explicit that exorcism scene was going to be?
Yeah. I had concerns that, this is the beginning of the movie. And I had serious concerns about whether the audience was going to be alienated by what happens in that scene
Hmm.
with Father Peter, what happens with me and in that scene that they would be uh, really turned off by my character and that it would alienate them for the rest of the film, which is not what you would want in a movie,
Yeah,
especially if you don't want everyone hating your lead in the first 10 minutes, you know?
absolutely.
So I feel like that's a really fine line within a scene to have such a traumatic experience happen and to be able to have empathy for that character within that experience and be be actually hopefully more invested in that character and the story than you were before that scene happens instead of more turned off. And
Yeah.
I feel like we achieved that. I feel like most people are not disgusted by Father Peter.
Mm-mm.
uh, they seem to have confusion and are not sure what's happening, but they're not repulsed and not disgusted, and they are interested in finding out what happened
I
without.
think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but in my opinion, it humanized him.
Yeah,
You know, it made him a human, not just this priest free of sin or any of that. You're a human being and you're trying to do good, uh, but the demon, a very powerful demon, which we'll get to in a little bit. Now, that moment, that beginning of the movie, defines Father Peter for the next 18 years. He
yeah.
is living with tremendous amount of guilt because of what happened. In your opinion, because he's trying to do good and make up for his sin, quote unquote, do you think Father Peter, in your opinion, is a coward?
I don't. I think he is someone who is idealistic and is looking at all sides and who deeply cares about having the most impact and benefit for the people that he's serving. And I feel like he continually puts that first instead of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And but I don't think he understands until towards the end of the movie that he couldn't have both. He couldn't have his cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
You know, he couldn't keep doing the good things and yet have this trauma, this sin that he's haunted by, be alleviated. It didn't work that way,
Yeah.
and he was hoping that it would, but and he was hoping these things that would happen that were good for the community would alleviate that. But at the end of the day, when he was alone in his room, those thoughts that anger towards himself for what he did, comes creeping back up, and he's left alone with his own thoughts, and it never goes away.
Absolutely. Throughout the whole film, when he's explaining what happens, he justifies it as the demon taking control of him, which is true. The demon
Yeah.
did jump into you as you were performing this exorcism. Do you think, you know, within his own mind that justifies uh, to him what happened? Because obviously he's still haunted by that day.
I think it. I don't think it justifies it for him. I think he I think he feels like he could have done better and he should have done better and he should have been able to stop it sooner.
Hmm.
But in scenes where this becomes more of an issue, he does I would say humble himself to the fact that he tried the best he could and wasn't able to win,
Hmm.
beat beat the possession as quickly as he could have or wanted to. But I feel like when he's by himself, he believes he could have done more.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
I always feel like he believes he can do more.
Hmm. And that's a big burden that he puts on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Now, as you were presented with this script, what drew you to the role of Father Peter? Did you put any of yourself into the role? Did you really have to work hard to create this character and bring him to life on the screen?
Well, I mean, John, you saw the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I read the script, and when I read the script, I was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
Thing is, this script is crazy. I mean, this script is like could be extremely controversial. It's for Catholic communities. It could really um, challenge them and get them up in arms. Um, if they don't follow the nuance of the story, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it was the script. I read the script and I was like, this is incredible. I mean, like the journey this character goes on, and Alejandro told me about future possibilities with the storyline, and I was like, this is an amazing long journey for this character, and we've only just started this process with this story. So hopefully there will be additional pieces of this story,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it only, crazily enough, only gets better. Um,
Yeah, you could say the end is the beginning of definitely a new chapter. Was there
yeah,
any difficulty for you? Did you do any kind of deep dive research into Catholicism, into priests that do exorcists, to get into the mindset of Father Peter?
the shoot ended up happening pretty quickly. There was a small window with which they could shoot in Mexico City, so I didn't have much time to do that. I was like, often research is great, but when you have limited time, the best thing for me is my immersion into the script and the story, and
Okay.
and getting that as deeply in my body as possible.
Not.
So if I,
Oh, I'm
you know,
sorry.
so if I do that, then I feel like the large majority of everything is there. There could be things that I could miss because I didn't get to do the research on exorcisms and these things that sometimes are intellectual, but they offer these little distinct little gems at times.
Hmm.
But it's always dependent on the time frame you have.
Absolutely.
I
Now,
didn't have a 6 month time frame, 6 month ramp up preparation. So
absolutely. Now, I don't know if you've seen classics. There have been a ton of movies about exorcisms. The Exorcist is like, the top of the list.
yeah.
I'm sure you've seen movies here and there in regarding demonic possessions and exorcisms. Was there any of that because you had such limited time that you sort of looked at and said, maybe that's good, maybe that's not good, and try to pick out what you liked, the nuances that you wanted to put into Father Peter?
Well, Alejandro requested slash suggested that I watch a couple films that he thought were the best exorcism movies in the genre, which was obviously The Exorcist, and second one was The Exorcism of Emily Rose. That he thought
Excellent movie.
really good movie, and I think there was a third one, but I'm not remembering off the top of my head. Um, so I watched those two, and I found value in them, and then I happened to be in Washington D.C., so I went to the steps where The Exorcist where the
In
Exorcist
Georgetown.
in Georgetown, and walked around some of the neighborhood and the campus, and kind of did like a little bit of a, I'm imbuing and absorbing the world of the Exorcist by walking these stairs, by doing these things, and whatever benefit happens will happen. A little bit of pseudoscience or whatever, but staying open to whatever comes in from that experience. So that's a little something I did that was really fun. But more than anything, I just looked at the story and I started connecting um, to the things that were really important to Father Peter, which were the people, more particularly the children,
Yes.
and what those children meant were for me. And to me, my favorite things in the world are animals and children. So uh, to me, those that's how I connected to making those things really important, was treating those children as if they are either my little cousins, or as if they're animals
Yeah.
that can't are not able to protect themselves, that are being taken advantage of. And
And
that is something that deeply bothers me on a very, very visceral level. So
and
that's something I use to connect with, like, the
and
children, and why I run this orphanage at this church, and why that is important to me.
and that is sort of the mainstay of this plot, is how the demon is using the people around Father People, and particularly the children, to
Yeah.
get to you. You are the demon's prize. Everything is because of you. He wants you um, as his prize, and he will use everything and anything to get to you. Now, Alejandro Hidalgo, this was his first English speaking film. When you
Yeah.
got to meet Alejandro, did you guys have a lot of discussions? How did you find working with him? Did you guys get along great? Did you find his direction easy to follow on what he wanted the character of Father Peter to be?
Well, I mean, he's a very charming, charismatic person. So we had a great initial conversation over Zoom, and then when we started working in Mexico City, the first we had like a week of rehearsal, which I think really shows up on the screen, because we did different exercises between different characters, like me and Joseph, me and Magali, me and Nelson, and me and Esperanza. Um, and I feel like these exercises helped create more chemistry where there wasn't as much, or
Mm-hmm.
help build more chemistry where there already was a lot of chemistry. Um, so that was something that I was really impressed by, and happy that he did, because those types of exercises and that type of detailed relationship building can really help a film, when people watch it and go, man, they look like they've known each other for years. They have such great chemistry. They're just connected to each other. They look like they know each other's thoughts. I mean, it's like so fortunately he cast really good actors who were
Mm-hmm.
really open, and were committed to the project. So I think that was something that he did really well. And also, he's just a great director. I mean, the dude wrote this thing, he directed this thing. He's got a great eye and taste in terms of the way something looks, the way the camera moves, and it's he's just a I think he's an incredible director who I can't wait to see what other movies he comes up with, because the guy's brilliant. Um, and I think this movie is really, I think he's on a new wave of filmmakers coming from Latin America. Andy Muschietti and Alejandro Hidalgo. I'm not sure who else is in that group, but I look
There are
at
a
them.
lot of them.
I look at them similar to like Guillermo del Toro and Alfonso Cuarón and Inarritu in a way. Like maybe Hidalgo is more like the Guillermo or something, where he's just in
Mm-hmm.
horror, but I know he wants to do other things as well.
Absolutely. He is a great director, and it was fascinating to talk with him. Now, the film shows, it gets very graphic in regards to the portrayal of the demon and the legion of demons, which is not something that we see in other movies. They're often referenced like the legion and so on, but in the Exorcism of God, we actually get to see them. Were there
Mm.
any moments on set because of Alejandro and how he brought everything to life, especially inside the indoor scenes inside the prison and the asylum, that kind of freaked you out a little bit?
I love that question, but I have to answer no.
Okay. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
I mean, to me, no. You know, I felt like I'm playing. I felt like I'm in a situation where none of this is real. I don't really believe in that on a personal level. Though I did have an experience when I was a child, at like the age of 10, on a Sunday morning after church, where I felt like um, a really dark force entered my body and stayed in my body, and I don't know if it's ever left.
Wow.
Um, but I felt like the devil's entered me or something. It was a weird experience, but I felt like a wave of darkness kind of come inside my mouth and take over my body.
Wow, that must really freaked you out. Now, Joseph Marcel, who plays Father Michael and
Yeah.
is Father Peter's mentor, what was it like to work with Joseph Marcel, who has a comedic background? Here we
Mhm.
all know him as Jeffrey from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, very famous, very popular, great
Yeah.
guy, funny. Now he's taking on this role as a unconventional Catholic priest. And one of the lines that sticks out to me in the movie is when your character asks him, "How am I going to do this?" And he basically tells you, "Don't ask God for help, but be God yourself."
Yeah.
A very powerful moment. Explain that interaction with Joseph, and what was it like to work with him?
Well, first I'll answer your questions in the opposite way. I love Joseph. He was great to work with. We lived in the same house together, so we got to spend a lot of um, time together. Whether sometimes we'd be eating breakfast together or lunch, and we'd work on some. We rehearsed several scenes together on the roof, or sometimes on location. We would. So I feel like we had a really great relationship, and I already highly respected him as an actor, and I didn't know that he's a classically trained
Yeah.
theater actor who's been doing plays at the Globe. He's a member of the company there, and he's been doing that for years. So that also was a really wise choice by Alejandro, because I feel like this movie is in some ways almost like a classical theater piece because of the dialogue,
Hmm.
because of the commitment and the level of stakes. Yes, it's a horror film, but it has the stakes are so high and it's so elevated in terms of the language in a
Hmm.
way, and formal at times, that it has like an elevated classical sense of language. So I thought he brought such power and such charisma and conviction when he was um, doing doing actions, whether he's exercising somebody or putting his emphasis on something to stop something. So I loved him. I loved him and his work, and I loved him as a person. And in that scene, that's kind of the in a way such a powerful scene, because it's similar to what it is in life. I feel like you can't wait on in spirituality. You can't wait on God or the spirituality to come to you. You need to believe that you are the one. You are the
Hmm.
source.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a lesson for all of us in terms of, if we want to change the world, we can't wait for it to change. You have to be the source. You have to be the one who takes the mantle, and and it's almost like self declaration.
Exactly. We're pretty much out of time, but I want to ask you one last question.
Yeah.
At the end of the film, you are faced with a very critical decision to make.
Yeah.
You make a what can be considered a righteous sacrifice to save the people around you. Do you think Father Peter saw that as a sacrifice, and did he realize the consequences of his decision moving forward? It's a
I,
tough one, I know.
Yeah, I think he's in a situation that there is no right answer.
Yeah.
Uh, there is no right answer. So the answer he took was the right answer was to be there for other people more than himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the choice that he made, which I feel like as a priest is choosing others above yourself is another is a final act of I don't want to call it a martyr, but the final act of being a good human being,
Mm-hmm.
being someone who puts others first. And I feel like so that's the choice he made. I think that was the choice that
He really did not have any other choice. He was in a bad spot.
no, yeah, he's in a horrible spot.
Yeah.
You know, he's in a no-win situation. I'm happy that he's able to do some negotiations there to make to sweeten the deal, but without giving in things away. But yeah, um, yeah, I feel like it also is really good because it helps set up a possibility of another storyline, of an
Mm-hmm.
expanded storyline upon this same story.
Me too. And I think that would be great. I would love to see the continuation. Will, thank you so much for sharing
John,
this time with us and giving us your insight on the film. You're amazing. I look forward to seeing a lot more of your work. Thank you again on behalf of our audience. I want to thank Will. Will, it's been great. Until next time, I'm sure we'll be chatting again. Guys, thank you for tuning in. On behalf of Will Beinbrink and myself, stay safe and stay walking, guys. Till next time. Bye bye.
bye, Dead Talk peeps.